So what we are going to talk about in this particular part of the lesson is where we are supposed to use was, were, that form with what kind of word. So apples, when you're using, then you'll use were. But when you'll use quality of the apples, then you're going to use was. Because when you're referring to quality, that is a singular thing that you're referring to. So the correction here would be quality of apples was not good. So when you're doing sentence corrections kind of questions, these kinds of things would be the problems at times, the subject and verb part of it. So reading about the rules actually helps us understand how these work in sentence, and familiarizing yourself with the set pattern would also help you recognize the wrong patterns in the exam. So first rule states that the subject and verb must agree in number. Both must be singular or both must be plural. So when you're talking about the car belongs to my brother here, and they also play football. So here, when you're looking at the form of the sentences, can you see the changes? Belongs and play.
Yes, ma'am.
Next one, the number of the subject, singular or plural, is not changed by words. We've had this session before, right? It's just a revision session for most of you, I'm assuming. Or is it like there are a lot of new kids also? Guys?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Are you understanding? Is it?
Mm.
It is written over here that both must be singular,
Huh.
and here the thing is the car and belongs singular.
Belongs is singular and belong
Okay.
would be
Okay, ma'am.
double. So, or plural, you can say. Then the next one is number of subjects, singular or plural, is not changed by words or a phrase that come in between the subject and the verb. So one of the boxes is open. Now here, you're talking about one of them. So when the boxes part comes in, you're not going to be confused about the verb here. You're not going to use were.
Okay, ma'am.
Next one, some subjects always take a singular verb, even though the meaning may seem plural. Someone in the game was hurt. So here, because we're talking about someone, so someone always refers to one person. So someone in the game was hurt. Even if you're referring to maybe like if you're not aware of number, then you can say someone in the game was hurt. Then as well. So there the number is not going to change the number in someone. So it is assumed to be singular only. So when you're using the verb form, that will also stay singular. It won't change form to verb. Next, the following words may be singular or plural depending
Your voice
upon.
is breaking a lot.
Is it?
No, ma'am. No.
No?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay, so if someone's mic is on, please switch that off till the time you have to speak. Otherwise, I think it's fine. The internet is also stable. Okay, next one, rule 4. The following words may be singular or plural depending upon their use in a sentence. Some, any, all, most. Now here comes the exception to that someone kind of a rule. So here you're looking at most of the news is good, most of the flowers were yellow. Now when you're looking at most of the news, because you're using it with the word news, which is referring to that singularity. So that is so when you're thinking of that, then you're talking about most of the news is good. Here it becomes a singular usage. Now when you're looking at most of the flowers were yellow, maybe you're referring to a bigger number of these flowers. And that's why you're saying most of the flowers were yellow. So if there were like 10 flowers, you're looking at 6 flowers which are yellow. So there the usage will become plural and you're using were. Next comes subjects joined by and are plural. Subjects joined by or not take a verb that agrees with the last subject. So when you talk about subjects which will be joined by and will become plural because you're thinking of the simple fact of addition. When you're thinking about maybe two people, then you say he and she went somewhere. He or she will mean one of them. So that is why you're talking about them being plural when using and when using or and nor, because you're talking about either one person or neither person. So then you will be using a singular one. Or whatever the later verb, whichever you're agreeing with. Bob and George are leaving. So because you're referring to both of them together and you'll use are. Next, neither Bob nor George is leaving. So now you're talking about neither Bob nor George. And because the previous one is a singular one, the form would be is leaving. Then the next one states, any doubt about this one, last one?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Next, it states, there and here are never subjects. In sentences that begin with these words, subjects are usually found later on in the sentences. There were 5 books on the shelf. So here, when you're looking at the verb, were, it is about the 5 books. So that is why plural. Next, it states collective nouns may be singular or plural depending on their usage in the sentence. Now, this is basically referring to something as a group or referring to it as singular people in that group. So when you're talking about the collective as the group, then you will be talking about it as a singular entity. But when you're talking about it as separate people coming together and forming it, then you're thinking of it as an entity which has separate units in itself, so subunits. So that's why you're asking for a plural verb here. So see the difference in these two sentences. The orchestra is playing a hit song. So because you're referring to the orchestra playing together as a team onto like and working on a song together, so you're considering it as one singular unit which is working in it. Now when you're talking about the orchestra were asked to give their musical backgrounds. Now when you think of orchestra members, now all of them will have different musical backgrounds. None of them will have similar kind of a background. So here when you're thinking of that in separate units, that's why you're thinking of them as separate people and not as one entity, which is the united form of them, which you're referring to in the first sentence. That's why it will take a plural form. Is this fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Next one, some nouns, while plural in form, are actually singular in meaning. So when you talk about something like economics, mathematics, it would be, again, something which would be considered singular. That's why mathematics wouldn't be are, it would be is. Mathematics is an easy subject for some people. Next, doesn't is a contraction of does not and should not be used only with a singular subject. Don't is a contraction of do not and should be used only with a plural subject. So the first one is doesn't is a contraction of does not and should be used with singular. And don't should be used only with a plural subject. So this, I think you must be aware of that it's the contraction of does not and don't.
Ma'am, can you explain the rule which you told before I just came?
This one, some nouns while plural in form are actually singular in meaning. Okay, so in
Yes,
this
ma'am.
one, yeah, okay. So in this one, we're talking about nouns like mathematics, economics, sciences. But sciences, because it's multiple fields, it will be sciences are at times. So, but when you talk about maybe particular science, like one particular science, or something like spacecraft, so all of them are considered singular in meaning, while they have plural forms. So mathematics when you're talking about, economics when you're talking about, when you're using them in sentences, you'll use a singular verb with it instead of using a plural verb, which is are. So instead of are or were, you are going to use something like is or was. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am, got it.
Next rule states that doesn't is a contraction of does not and don't is a contraction of don't. Sorry, do not. So when you're using does not, you should be using it with a singular subject. Like when you are using he does, right? So he is singular and that's why you're using does with it. And when you're using do not, so there again, you are going to use they do not. So that is a plural that you're using. So here also you're going to use plural subject whenever you're using don't or do not. So he does not like it. Because it's a singular one, you'll use does not and doesn't either. Nouns such as civics, mathematics, dollars, and news require singular verbs. Now, this is again sort of repetition of this particular one. Mathematics is an easy subject for some people. So when you're thinking of civics, mathematics, dollars, and news, they need singular verbs. So $1 million is needed to renovate that building. Okay, so these are the basic 10 rules. After this, we come to prepositions. So prepositions are not
$1 million or $1 million?
$1 million. $1 million, it would be, no? You're referring to a lot of dollars, but collection of dollars. It won't apply to all of the currency. Certain currency would use different forms.
Ma'am, if it is $1 million, then why $1 million is used?
Yes, ma'am. It is referred in a singular thing only, like it's not taken as a plural stuff. You always say $1 million as if it's a single money, like you don't refer it as a
A
plural.
single collection. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so like because you're referring to it as a singular verb, like they said, no, they have a form which is plural, but they are actually singular. That is what they were talking about in that mathematics part. Some nouns, while plural in form, are actually singular in meaning. So even the meaning of this $1 million, this dollars part is when you say dollars. So that is again from that singular form.
Ma'am, if it is $1 million, then $1 million. What if it's like $75 million? That time we won't say $75 million, right?
Definitely, you won't say that.
Yes, ma'am.
Because right now you're referring to only 1 million. That's why $1 million.
And what if 100?
Then $100 million.
$100 million or just $100 million?
$100 million would be.
Okay,
100
ma'am.
million wouldn't make sense, no?
Hmm.
But like then if you're referring to 100 million, then 100 million also makes sense. 100,000,000, no, 100,000. Then you should be starting 100,000 it will become. So 100 million would be correct.
Understood, ma'am.
That should be correct too. 100,000 also is correct. So as long as it is that one number in the starting, no, the usage is correct. But if it isn't, then you can't use it. Okay, come to the preposition part. Now, when you talk about prepositions, prepositions are something which would tell you where the location of a thing is at time, or they will indicate direction at times. It also tells you almost how much distance that object is from you. So location, time, space, direction are the 4 categories that usually prepositions define. So when you talk about prepositions, you're very much familiar with what prepositions are. Could you give me some examples?
In, on, at,
Behind, beside,
Besides,
Before,
here, there.
above, below.
Correct. So can you recognize prepositions in these sentences?
Off.
off,
Is the one. Introduction of my essay. Then here.
in,
In
So here it's telling you where the jacket is.
in the
the
car.
location. Then did
To.
you send that
To.
letter?
to,
So it's addressing the subject, your mother. We're cooking for
For.
10 guests.
For.
for,
How many?
For.
It's defining number. Dan ate lunch with his
with,
with.
With.
To. Ending a sentence with a preposition. Now, this is one thing which is to be looked at just because you'll have sentence corrections. So you can have some sentences which are ending with a preposition. So don't think that it's incorrect just because it's ending with a preposition. So when you're looking at this one, there's no one else to hide behind. So this is more natural. So this would be correct. And behind is a preposition which is giving you location again. Then where did you come from? From is also a preposition that is being used. However, this looks more unnatural. This as well, this is something we must meditate on. So this is the most natural one. Others seem more made up. This is something on which we must meditate. This is something on which we must meditate on. Here, it's definitely unnecessary. And then here, when it's indicated already, where is your brother? Then you're asking the person about the location already. So here, if you end up using another preposition, that becomes wrong. So here, you don't need it. It's indicated in the question itself. So this would be the correct form.
ma'am, and where is your brother? Which one is preposition?
Where is your brother at would be wrong because at is unnecessary. You're already asking the person where is your brother, so location is indicated beforehand. You don't need to use that.
So it is not
That's
necessary to use preposition in every word, in every sentence.
every sentence, it isn't. So here, where is your brother? Here, this is the correct usage. So this will be the correction. Here also, when you talk about this one now, Alex hit the basketball up over the fence. So you don't need up. You already have over, which is giving you that. Alex hit the baseball over the fence.
What is the difference between into and inside? For example, he jumped into the swimming pool or he jumped inside the swimming pool?
Into and inside. Into, he'd be jumping into, right? Because he's going from one medium to another. But jumped inside is not correct. Jumped into would be correct.
Ma'am, when is into used? In which
Inside
cases?
would be like into is used when you're But then again, jumped into the bus also makes sense, now that I think about it. Jumped inside the bus.
Ma'am, inside it's usually like when something is already in, right? Into is the process of going in.
Yeah, inside is more when you're referring to the that particular area of that surface, which is inside that, right? So the voluminous area. But when you say something is into,
Ma'am, can you give some example for inside?
inside,
Inside the table. No, it should be under the table.
so something will run into the water, I would say, from air. He ran into the water from air. So there is like a difference of mediums when you're thinking of it. But when you're using inside, you refer to the surfaces or something. You say like,
Inside bag.
so you say like inside of an orange is pulpy and the outside is hard, something like that. So inside a bag. It was inside my bag. I threw it inside my bag. I threw it into my bag is also correct. But in into, you're more like specifying direction. So that is the difference, I think. Inside just means like I dropped something inside. I ran into something.
Ma'am,
So there is
I
more
left
force.
the bag.
So into has force involved when there is an action, and when it comes to inside, there is no force involved. So that force is usually directed towards something. So when you say something like, he got inside the bus. So basically, he was like, he got inside the bus from the outside area or wherever, like he jumped inside the bus would be correct again. But when you're saying something like he jumped into the water, there you won't be saying he jumped inside the water, because that is not like a defined area that he has.
Into shows a direction or something.
Into shows a direction, and it is a limited space that you're referring to usually. So when you're talking about, inside refers to a space which is smaller, but when you're talking about into, it refers to the direction. Yeah, you were correct.
Ma'am, can you scroll slightly up?
Yes.
Ma'am, can you like correct this one for many people, the reality of an entry?
Okay. For many people, the reality of an entry into a new area of employment is cause for a host of anxiety. So here, instead of using the last area, which is, so you say for many people, the reality of an entry into a new area of employment is caused for a host of anxiety. So here you are creating complicated sentences by just talking about the same idea over and over again. So reality of an entry. Wow. Yeah, so it could be the reality of an entry to a new area of employment causes a lot of anxieties for many people. So something like that it could be reformed into, if you have to
Ma'am,
remove.
can we strike out some words and make it like, for many people, the reality of The reality into a new area of employment is a host of anxieties.
Yeah, so I think is cause should definitely be dropped from the sentence because it's unnecessary. Or like for a host of anxiety, there like it's again too much complications with extra words. So
Yes,
I think
ma'am.
the sentence is not exactly like incorrect if you look at it. It's just wordy.
Yes, ma'am.
Unnecessary words are being used. So you can rearrange the sentence also. You can get it in the back also. Okay. Is that fine? Or did you have something to say? You were saying something.
Ma'am, the reality of an entry into will be striked out into the reality into a new area.
No, but they're talking about entry, no? So the reality of entry into new area. Of
Ma'am, I
employment.
also have a doubt if the
Lot of
reality of is very necessary here. Like, is
Which
it
one?
really necessary? Like the reality of can't it be skipped? Like, instead we can directly say for many
See,
people.
actually, the reality of an entry as well as this part cause for a host of anxieties. Both of these are extended versions of saying just the general thing, right? So I think both of them are unnecessary over here.
Unnecessary, yes, ma'am.
This sentence they've given to show you like basically what you should not do in sentences.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Getting rid of these prepositions will make it more direct, is what they're trying to say. So when they are removing all of that, then the sentence that they've corrected is given like this: changing careers makes many people anxious. So instead of saying reality of an entry into a new area of employment causes host of anxieties, they made it more tighter by using this. So this is what the basic idea is. So if you have to go for like really the correct version, then this would be the super correct version. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's go to the prepositions. So number one comes the prepositions of time. So in prepositions of time, you're looking at the prepositions which will define things when they will happen. So when it comes to time, you can be referring to weather as well. You'll be referring to the hour or the year. So all of these indicate different kinds of time constraints that human beings have. So when you think of all of those, here you can use those prepositions to indicate these. So which one is the proper one is good to know before we go to sentence correction kind of questions. So number one comes on. So when you are referring to days of the week, then you use on instead of in or something like that. But when you're referring to weekends, then you can refer to it using at. So when you say days of the week, like Monday or Wednesday, then you use on Monday, on Wednesday. But when you're using Saturday, or maybe like, no, so on Saturday also works. But when you're using the weekend, probably the referring to that specific idea of the end of the week. When you say the weekend, so instead of the weekend being used with on the weekend, you use at the weekend. Is that fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Then comes yes. There must be doubt about this. बताइए
टाइम के आगे क्या लगता है on
कौन सा टाइम
for example ma'am I have solved a question spotting errors mein if you had not come in time the child would have taken by the dacoits तो यहाँ पे what I thought कि come on time would be the error but पीछे आंसर में लिखा हुआ है कि would have taken को हटा करके took किया है.
Come in time for
22nd question.
where is this?
Arihant, 22nd question.
See, on time and in time is a different thing. So on time usually means that if you were supposed to reach somewhere at 2, you reach there at 2. So like if someone looks at you at that moment and says like, oh, you are on time. So that would be the usage. But when you're thinking of something like in time, then it is like before something ended or something like that. So you said, oh, you came right in time. So, or like you came right on time would be to indicate like you came at the correct time, but you came right in time or you were in time for this particular thing would mean before something happened. So you're referring to that situation. In this sentence, I see there is a situation. What is the situation? The child is something, no? So what is that? Could you repeat the sentence again, Vidhi?
If you had not come in time, the child would have taken by the dacoits.
Because so basically they're saying like you came in time, otherwise they would have taken the kid. That's why you're using in time. But if it was a train, then you say that you have come on time to catch the train, or the train is on time, or you are on time for the shoot schedule or something like that. Does that make sense? The difference?
Yes, ma'am.
You're not audible, Vivi.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah.
Could you once again re-explain the difference between on weekend and at weekends? Like,
oh, it's on weekdays. Like weekdays, you talk about days of the week specific.
and then why at weekends?
At weekends is because you're referring to it as collective. If you refer to on Saturday, that'll be fine. At Saturday, you don't have to say. You'll be using on Saturday only, on Friday, on Sunday. Okay, but when
But
you're referring to
most
that collective,
but
yeah,
most of the people say like call me on the weekends and like
they don't know. It's okay. So the thing is, people say a lot of things. We use colloquial language all the time. I also use incorrect language when I talk to people who are close to me because we are used to speaking that, right? But when it comes to the exam, we're gonna go with the roots. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So yeah, but just think about it as this. So because it's singular days that we're referring to, we'll use on for all the singular days. Like even when we're using a weekend or weekday. So you don't have to think of what part of the week. But when you're thinking about at part, so when you're using the weekend somewhere, then whenever you're using that, then think of using at instead of that because it's a collective that you're referring to. Usually the weekend for people is 2 or 3 days. So that was about on. Coming to in, when you refer to months or seasons, so you say in summer, or you say in October, in August, all of that would be using in. Then time of the day, in the morning, in the afternoon, at noon. At noon? In the afternoon. So yeah, at noon is one difference that you have. Then time of the day, in the morning, in the afternoon would be the usage because at noon is more of a colloquial usage when you're looking at. When you're referring to any time of the day, in the evening, in the morning, in the afternoon. So those will be using in, but when you're referring to night, then it becomes at night. colloquial language uses in the night, but then again, it's very less used. Mostly you'll come across this usage only at night. So we'll go with the correct usage. Question? I can't hear you if you're speaking. You couldn't. Is there a doubt?
Ma'am,
Yeah.
in the above one, it's written time of the day. So in the morning, in the evening, and in the afternoon. But for night, we can't use in.
No, at night is the correct usage. So when you're using in the night, so you can probably be talking about one specific night. That is the exception. But other than that, when you're using, so referring to any night. So at night, usually I drink tea. So that is not what I do, but just saying for sentence sake, if you think of this sentence, at night, I usually drink tea. So when you think of that, then you're talking about how you are drinking tea mostly every day or every second day or whatever the frequency is. But when you're thinking about using in the night, then you're talking about a specific night when some event happened. So if you're talking about a particular story or a particular thing happening on that specific day, then you can use the there. Sorry, in there. Otherwise, you use at. Is that fine?
Yes, ma'am.
For example, if a sentence is, I have taken the swear in night or at night. I have taken the swear at night.
I have taken
the swear in night or at night.
I can't hear that word you're. I've taken this.
Swear.
Swear.
SWEER. Swear.
Swear.
Yes, ma'am.
You're referring to the last night that happened.
I took, yes, ma'am. I took the swear in the night or at night. I took the swear in the night.
See, I would actually suggest instead of using in the night, during the night. During the night. But then again, if you're using in the night, then you can use it to refer to something that has happened only once, or it like you're referring to that particular night or those set of nights, like 2 or 3 which have happened. So specificity is what matters when you're using in referring to night. Is that okay?
No, I didn't get it.
Vidhi, your voice is very low. I'm not able to hear what you're saying. That's the main problem.
Ma'am, I didn't get what you said. Can
Didn't
you
get it.
repeat it again?
Yeah, sure. So in the night would be used when you're referring to one night in specific, but at night would be referred to when you're using it in multiple nights, maybe like every night. So when you're referring to I oil my hair every night, so there you can talk about I oil my hair at night. So every night you're oiling your hair, or every second night, or whatever alternate numbers. So there are multiple nights over there. There you're using at when you're referring to it in general. But when you're referring to one particular night and not generalizing anymore, that moment you have to use in, or I would suggest using during. So in is a little less common. During is the correct usage. So you can say during the night this happened. So, or in the night, in the course of last night or something. So when it comes to in, you specify the night mostly. You don't refer to any general night. So you say yesterday night, or you'd say the night before. So even when you're referring to a night of this particular day, so then you can say in. But that time also I would suggest using during.
Ma'am,
So, yeah.
Okay, now I got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
ma'am, in the idiom also, is this like applied like in the last hour, it should be at the last hour and not in the last hour? Like he keeps
Idioms
dealing.
are something which come from colloquial language, so we cannot think of rules there, right? So
So
just
is it okay then if I, tell at the last hour or in the last hour?
in the last hour, at the last hour, what like so at the last hour would be also correct at a time. When you're referring to that certain period of time, then at can be used, no? So at is one thing which you can use for any certain period of time. So when you know that this thing has to happen, so that is at. So you're specifying when you're using this preposition. That is the difference between in and at.
Okay, ma'am, understood. Yes, ma'am.
So when you are talking about specific time, so you'll be using at. But when you're talking about like a general statement, so general is in an hour. So that is general. I'm not like specifying which hour. But when I refer to which hour, then I am going to use at, more specificity.
Yes, understood. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Next one, are you well? Take care, guys. Like it's
Yes, ma'am.
right. Yeah. So I would say all of you take care. Now, since. So when you talk about since, from a certain point of time, past till now. So when you're using since, we've already talked about at. For night, you'll use at. For weekend, you'll use at a certain point of time. So whenever you're able to define a point of time, then you can use at. So that certainty would come with other concepts also. It's not necessary that you're referring to only these given over here. So then come to since, from a certain point of time, and for also is again similar to since, but there is a difference. When you talk about since, then you have a specificity of when this particular thing started. So the starting point is given to you. So when you talk about since 1980, or when you say since 250, or whenever you're referring to like a particular time, then you'd be using since over there. So when you're marking the starting of that time.
तीसरा पैकेट प्रेरणा दीदी के लिए छोड़ देना अगर वो खाएगी तो.
Okay, someone's mic is unmuted. I would suggest. Manogna, I think.
Not me, ma'am, Pragati.
Oh, Pragati. Okay. Sorry. I think you spoke to say that, and I saw your. Please turn your mics off, guys, if you're not speaking. Pragati.
I think we have the next Shweta.
No, it's Pragati. Pragati, could you mute your mic, please?
Ma'am, you
Not
can
able
do.
to hear us. I can't. I'm not the host, I think. Am I?
No.
Okay, anyhow, it's quiet down, so I think she's at like other place.
Like that, Daddy.
Pragati, your mic is on, dear. Could you please mute it?
I was just talking about Rachel. Was Daddy getting angry?
Oh my god.
Daddy gonna spank me? Well, that depends.
Okay, so
Depends, or what?
Probably call
Mukesh, are you in the meeting? I don't know what to do in this situation.
Ma'am, you can call Mukesh sir and tell him.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
We are also
He's
live
scrolling
on
on
YouTube.
Instagram.
Yeah, that's also there. Yes.
What you doing?
Pragati, can you hear us?
Ma'am, she is muted, I guess.
Yeah. So continuing on to our preposition part, let's go. So as I was talking about since and for, when you're looking at since and for, there is the difference of the specificity of the starting of time when you're referring to the since part. But when you're referring to for, you don't have that specificity, but you talk about the general duration of time. So you say for 2 hours I've been working on this, or for 2 years I've been writing this book. However, when you're saying something started at that time, so you say like, since Saturday, I've been working on this novel. So then you're specifying that on whatever Saturday that was past, you started working on this particular document. Then again, when you're referring to any year also since 1980, so you'd see this in a lot of branding as well. Since so established in this or like since this like 1919 or something like that. So they're trying to show that they're pretty old or like they've been in the market for a while. So these are the two. Any doubt about these two? Shouldn't be that much.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Next we come to ago. So when you're looking at ago, a certain time in the past, 2 years ago. So any time that you're referring to which has been passed already, you're going to use ago there. Earlier than a certain point of time, when you use before, so you're using it about earlier than a certain point of time. So before 2004, so it happened before 2004, or before this period ends, I want to see your drawing. So you want to specify anything's period before, or like you're referring to a period and you're specifying another action before it. So you'll use this.
Ma'am?
To even explain, I need this preposition. Yeah.
Ma'am, in a question, it was written, it was 8 years written, and I used since, but it was wrong and it was used for. So is it right, since or since 8 years or for 8 years?
What was the question? There the question matters.
I didn't remember the question, but at last it was written 8 years. So I wrote since 8 years. But
it was for 8 years.
Yeah, the correct answer was for 8 years.
Then it definitely must have, the sentence must have meant something has happened like over a certain period of time rather than from a certain period of time. So I've been working on it since.
But ma'am, 8 years is a specified time, and for specified time we use since, right?
8 years is not specified, no. Specified time would be like since 1980 is specified, 1980 is specified, or Saturday is specified. When you are saying something like 2 weeks, 2 hours, 2 months, these are not specified. Last week is specified. This week is specified probably. Are you getting my point?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So that is the main difference. So if you know something has been there on like particular moment of time, certain point of time they've given, then you're going to use since. Otherwise, when it's generalized, it is going to be for. Is that fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I think we'll have to proceed with the rest of it in the next session. We'll have to take another session for this, in which we'll also do sentence improvement. So we'll finish with prepositions and we'll go ahead with this. I'll prepare some more questions and then you can practice these from home, whichever is in the study material. Since morning will work. Since morning, yeah. Since morning will work. If you're, because you're probably referring to that particular one.
Ma'am, actually, I have one doubt.
Hmm.
Whiskey and soda was served in the party. Was if it is come on the whiskey
and soda.
Yeah, ma'am.
Whiskey and soda would be were, right? But
So,
the correction was
or were?
Were. Because and, right? That is what we discussed. Whiskey and soda were. So whiskey or soda it was, then it would be was. Right?
Okay, ma'am.
Because or will indicate singular subject. And when you're using and, it becomes plus. So it becomes 2, 1 plus 1.
Okay, ma'am. But the answer was it was.
It was. I'll look
Yeah.
at the. I'll just check if there is an exception to that rule or something. But I think it should be were.
Oh, okay, ma'am.
Okay. So we'll continue this in the next session, guys. So we'll just conclude now. Thank you so much. Next session,
Thank you,
we'll do
ma'am.
some sentence correction.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye, ma'am.
Bye, bye.
Ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Can you share the grammar PDF?
Thank you, ma'am.
The grammar PDF.
Yeah, I'll download it from here if you can share it in the chat.
Okay. Just give me a minute. Oh, you just text me right now or what?
Okay,
I
ma'am.
think
I'll
we
just
have to
text
end
you.
the session. Yeah. It's
Yes,
live.
ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, guys. Bye.